This is
RedPubPod.
RedPubPod,
RedPubPod.
That's the way we do it.
a podcast
RedPubPod.
from Redhawk Publications. RedPubPod.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and thank you for joining us for one more episode of RedPubPod, your lovely episode of all good books coming out of
Redhawk Publications.
Yeah, you're going to have to help me out on this one, Richard. It's been a little bit.
That's fine. Yeah, we got a jam-packed show, so I can understand the anticipation.
We do. And not only that, but it's exciting. I have some of my favorite folks in the room right now, so it is exciting. Redhawk Publications, which is an initiative of Catawba Valley
Community
College. Man, just pull it out of me.
Please allow me to finish your sentence.
Yeah, and besides us doing take 25, we're just going to go with this because I'm going to have fun today.
Okay.
I want to thank our guest today, and without any further interruption with me being tongue-tied, we are very grateful to have an author with us today, Jason Parker. He is responsible for a memoir that I've been spending too much time in sending out. I sent out about 97 books yesterday, Jason.
It is flying off the shelves.
So we thank you. So Jason is in the house, and we'll be talking about how his journey publishing has been. And in addition to that, we also have one of our favorite editors, too. Tom Rash is with us.
The primo editor.
And we thank you for coming all the way from Asheville, Tom. So this, again, it's a big deal. We're really excited to have the two of them here. For those of you who may not be familiar, please make sure you go to our website, redhawkpublications.com, and make sure you check out the memoir, Prosecutor Boy by Jason Parker. It's an exceptional memoir, and one that, again, as we get a little bit more into the conversation, you're going to learn about the journey from the beginning of Word 1, Jason putting it on paper, and how we ended up shipping it out yesterday, 97 copies. Jason, welcome, and thank you for coming to our pod today. Would you mind maybe just briefly giving folks a little bit of your background, where you're from, and your background to become the attorney that you were? You were a local prosecutor.
Okay. I was born and raised in Taylorsville, North Carolina, during the time of segregation, 1951. I attended a all-black elementary school. When they had freedom of choice, I went to the predominantly white high school, me and two other black guys in my class, and then they fully integrated in 2 years later. While there, when I was at the black school, they used to tell me that, hey, when you get to the white school, you're going to be stupid. And I believed that, so I ended up going to general high school. But then, after a while, my teachers realized that, hey, this kid's kind of special, so they put me in college prep. And from there, I ended up, graduating 17 out of 167 students. The only person, probably only the last black undergraduate from Taylorsville High, because Taylorsville High went away the next year. There was no more Taylorsville High until 1970. And so there I enrolled at NC State University. My first 2 years I was there, I was going to be an engineer. And after a year and a half, I realized that if I don't get out of this engineering class, I'm going to end up in Vietnam, because that's back in the days when they gave you deferments. And so after that year and a half, I went to this dean in liberal arts and begged him off, hey, man, can I get out of this curriculum? And he said no. These two courses without a grade. And he said, nope, I'm not going to do it, because, you said a girl just walked out here crying. You was a black girl just walked out. She said, yeah, well, she wanted to do the same thing, and I still wasn't going to do it. Well, I'll take it with Dean. I'll make a deal with you. If you let me get out of these two engineering classes without a grade, if I can talk about two professors into let me do it, will you go along with the program? He said, yeah. So I come back 20 minutes later. I got these two pieces of paper with, it says I can get out of this class, and he starts to back up with, nope, Dean, a deal's a deal, Now, I didn't tell the dean what I did to those two professors to let them let me off the hook. But basically what I said to them, look, guys, here's the deal. I'm in engineering. I'm flunking your course. If I flunk this course, I'm going to get out. I'm going to be picked up by the United States. My draft number is 41, okay? And if I go to Vietnam and die, I'm going to come back and haunt you. At which point they said, well, we can't have that, and they signed off. And I was able to switch over to liberal arts, and after I got into liberal arts, I was a political science major, which in and of itself is an oxymoron because there's nothing scientific about politics. When I got out of there, my first job was assistant manager for Kmart. I lasted there 6 months because they shipped me to Akron, Ohio, which is another story. When I got out of, when I quit that job, came back to North Carolina, like there was 2 years there where I just wasted my life away, sitting around doing things I shouldn't be doing, moping over a woman, and eventually, but during that time, I looked out and got a job with the unemployment office during the recession. Now, when the recession ended, I got laid off from the unemployment office. And that, to me, was probably the most devastating thing. Who gets laid off from the unemployment office,
Yeah.
So then that's when I decided to go back to law school. I went to North Carolina Central University School of Law, and there, I finished up in 3 years and passed the bar that year. And immediately upon passing the bar, while we were taking the bar exam, the other black assistant who was in Wake County at the time said, "When you guys want my job, you can apply for it." I went and applied for it, and sure enough, when the bar results came out, the guy called me up and asked me if I wanted a job. That's the only job I'd ever applied for. So, as far as law school, so the guy hired me. I lasted there 2 years, 13 days, 5 hours. The guy, I didn't like working for the guy, so and I moved back here to this area. Went into private practice with Joel Harmons and his wife at the time, Kim Harmons, and we called ourselves the Bod Squad. But I was the first black lawyer in this area. So, and from there, it just got to be a thing of, practicing law for 6 years. Wasn't too fond of, private practice, didn't really care for it. I wanted to be in the courtroom trying cases. And the best way to try cases is to become a prosecutor. And I had done that for 2 years, down in Raleigh. So a job opening came over here in Catawba County, I took it. And after I'd been there a year and a half, the lead prosecutor in Catawba County unfortunately died. And I was appointed and made chief assistant here in Catawba County, and I stayed in that position from 1990 to 2002. 2002, I moved over to Aller County, and basically my memoir is mostly telling about those growing up phases and, going into tales of integration, segregation, affirmative action, all that. And then I started telling what I call my war stories. And the reason I ended up writing this book is because a lot of people, when I would tell them some of the stories about some of the cases I tried, they said, "You need to write a book." And they kept saying, "You need to write a book." So I had kept my notes from all those other cases I had tried before. And some of the cases, if I need to go back to references, they were in the case law. You can find that and read up on that way. So that's what I did. And then
I would say the rest is history, but
Yeah.
what we're going to say, Richard.
Well, I was going to ask Tom, when he gave you the manuscript, what did you think about this?
Can we, before we get there,
Okay.
because that's a really good, interesting thing about how we ended up with Tom. How we ended up with the book. Jason, you were sharing in my office earlier how you met me,
Okay.
and that's how we ended up with the manuscript.
Okay.
And that's how we ended up.
I don't wanna get the cart before the
eventually
horse here, okay.
With that with Tom, because one of the things about this podcast is it's less about selling the book, although you should go to redhawkpublications.com and get it. Buy. But really, we're trying to help writers to understand the process and what it's like, the journey, and it's not easy. So, Jason, if you don't mind, share a little bit about how you met me and how you ended up coming to my office with your manuscript.
Okay. When I started writing the book, it was over a 10-year period of time. I would just go old cases and that kind of thing. I would just put them down on paper and that kind of thing. And then as a period of time, I said, okay, I'm going to try to find me a publisher. And I reached out to this one of those vanity publishing companies, and they kept talking about send us money. And I said, I don't want to do that. Somebody kept telling me, don't do that. So from that point, I actually tried to find a literary agent. I asked a guy who I knew had written a book. His son, his father and I grew up together, and this kid told me about, he gave me a list of literary agents, and I contacted several of them, and each one of them turned me down. Turned me down. I never heard back from them. So one day, Redhawk had a Black Authors seminar or something over.
It was an event.
An event over at the Ridgeview Library, and I went to that. And while I was there, one of the ladies I used to know, I know a friend of mine pointed out Patty and said, well, like, if you want to try to write a book, that's who you need to talk to. So I go over and I tap her on the shoulder and I say, hey, my name is Jason Parker, blah, blah, blah. And she pretty much, okay. If you got something you want to send in, just send it in. We'll talk about it, And so, but we're not taking anything in July, until July. July rolled around. I tried to contact her. She said, we're not taking anything until January. But this time I'm getting a little bit, maybe I'm not getting anywhere with her either. But finally, I submitted your request that send an autobiography in one chapter. And I sent in this chapter called Cyclops. And apparently she liked it. And so she said, okay, let's see what the rest of the book looks like. So I sent it in, and I think you had somebody read it.
Yeah, and I'll join in at this point. I remember seeing Cyclops, and I'm in my office laughing out loud. I'm like, okay, this has got some chops to it. So then I did ask for the rest of it. Mm-hmm. And as you may know, listeners out there, we use beta readers. And you know most of this, Jason. I sent your manuscript to one attorney who you know, Arnita Dua, as well as someone from Burke County who's a paralegal. She's got her doctorate. That would be Leslie McKesson. And the two of them both have legal backgrounds, and both from the South. They both read it. They both liked it. They both had some issues with the bio part, the intro part. Mm-hmm. As an attorney, they said it makes sense. He sidebars and segues far too much. It's a little confusing, but he can write, and it's interesting. And of course, me, when I get the full thing, I'm looking just at the war stories. I'm just looking at the cases, and I'm still in my office laughing out loud. So I know it's good. I know that there's definitely some merit to it. The beta reader's notes, it was something that could be worked on, but it was not something we had the developmental editing skills to handle, which is why I gave you the list of editors to contact.
She gave me a list of 4 editors, and one girl I never heard back from. The other one was pretty much a rookie, and the other was some guy up in Pennsylvania who was what you call. And so I pretty much was almost decided on the guy from Pennsylvania because I hadn't heard from this other guy named Tom Rash, who was whoever he was, but. But the thing was, when Patty gave me this list of names, she says, now, if you get Tom Rash, he's the cream of the crop. Mm-hmm. He's numero uno. I was okay, fine. So then, I'm I got these old cars I work on. I'm in my garage, I work on these old cars, and I get this phone call from Tom. And he says, I've looked at your bio, but I couldn't open up the Cyclops story. But I'm interested in your book. I said, well, can you try to send me another version of it? I think I did. I'm not sure if you even opened that up. But anyway, we came to an agreement. He said, it's okay, fine. You send me, you do a chapter at a time and send it to me, and we'll work on it. And for a year, over a little over a year, we got, and not only did he become an editor, he became a friend, and, he's got this sense of humor that sometimes, I just want to, man, if I could get my hands on it.
It's that Rash sense of humor we were talking about earlier.
Genetic.
Well, see, and the thing was, when I submitted my first version, it was like 600 pages, right? I was trying to put down every war story I ever had, and I had all these nice cases and things like that. And Tom said, we're going to cut this, we're going to cut that, we're going to chop this out, we're going to put this out. And I'm saying, man, you stop. Will you please quit chopping up my book?
Killing your babies.
Oh, he was killing them bad. And so I decided, okay, but he knew what he was doing. And this guy, I would say something I thought would be funny. But he kept telling me, get rid of the cliches, right? And one of my favorite examples, I was talking about this one judge, in Wake County that I used to deal with, and he had this red beard and a real, what you call red neck. And this guy, when he would get mad, his neck would just turn super red. And I said, let's talk about red neck turning as red as a beet. He comes back and says, let's change that to his neck looked like it had, the neck looked like it had been scalded. you know. And that's okay. We're gonna do fine because I had never thought about it that way, you know, like being scalded. And that's a better description of it than the beat red thing, you know. So.
Well, and if you don't mind me asking you, Tom, I guess when I've asked our writers who we kindly reject to reach out to editors, I didn't realize editors actually will pick up a phone and call somebody. And that's what you did with Jason. You called him. Clearly you wanted to do the book. What was it in that manuscript that you saw?
Well, the first thing is the humor. You discussed that. And I knew that the legal cases were inherently interesting. People love to watch procedural legal shows, and so I knew that would be interesting. It was too long, and it's difficult to decide what to cut out. I did feel that we needed to trim the part of the book. The background was very interesting, but I wanted to get to these stories because these stories were just amazing. And he's got just a series of anecdotes. So one challenge was to link those anecdotes. And that was one of I'd say cutting some of the material was a big challenge. Linking the anecdotes, and so some continuity. But the book was there. I mean, it was just there. It was just a matter of just a little bit here, a little bit there. I knew right off it was going to be very entertaining and also poignant in spots. Plus, it's a very telling depiction of growing up. He had an experience that I certainly had not had. I grew up in a small town in North Carolina, but seeing it from his perspective and situations, for example, he would go into a store and be told that he was not to be in there. I've never had that experience. So I think, readers are going to come to this book and sense his feelings as a child walking into a store and being told you're not welcome here. So it's got that, it's got humor, it's poignant, so it's got a nice mix. As I've said before, it's very well balanced. I think it's fair. You get a nice sense of the racial climate, but I never felt that Jason was being unfair or that he was embittered. So it was a pleasure to work with. It was a pleasure to work with the book. It was a pleasure to work with him. We put a lot of work into it, and I think what we have before us now is an excellent book, and I think a lot of people will be interested in it.
It's also very revealing. I mean, it took a lot of guts to write what you wrote, and especially in certain places. How'd you feel about that?
Well, somebody asked me the other day, did you talk to your wife about some of the stuff you put in there about the women you dealt with? I said, well, no, but she understands because her thing is I've heard all these stories before. I've told her pretty much everything I've done, So like I'm good on that end. And plus I've made it
Good on that end.
and plus I left out a whole lot of stuff about my love life back in those days. So like I ain't worried about that. No, but like. When it comes down to deciding, what to put in, what to take out, you would notice that some people, I don't put names of women in there. I might use a nickname, but I don't use a real name, if I mention a woman at all. But the thing is, these stories that I chose, some of those were like ones that affected me the most, as far as, for example, the case for the 3-year-old baby was killed. His father put him in a bathtub, and the kid died of hypothermia. Right?
That was a tough moment in that book.
Yeah, and like I'm sitting there trying to argue to the jury, and like halfway through my argument, I start crying. And because that affected me, man. I'm sitting there listening to that kid jump up and down on the trampoline. Dear God, please send somebody to save me. And then when the social worker shows up, he thinks she's her angel, and then 2 weeks later she hands him back to the daddy, and 2 days later he's dead. You know, that case messed me up. And so, you know, I had to pick some of the stuff that I was telling Tom, and there's a couple of cases I ain't putting in that book. Tom wants me to write another book, and I'm not putting them in there. I don't care what he says, you know.
You sure that ain't for the sequel?
Yeah, well,
Yes, absolutely.
He's got more cases, trust me.
I got some stories.
He'll tell me something, and I'll say, okay, write it down. Because I definitely think there's plenty of room here for a second book. And
I will say, you owe me a little, Jason, because as anyone knows, I'm not an editor, but I'm a voracious reader, and I so enjoyed this book. And as I'm reading it, there's a part in there where you talk about how you finally meet your wife, Elizabeth, and you're writing all these lovely things about her, but you didn't mention her name. And I had to tell him, like, oh, dude, what's your wife's name? And he's like, oh, yeah, let me put that in there. Yeah,
Okay,
that'd be nice. So, Elizabeth, this one's for you.
Like, it's just the thing of, you know, once I got past, you know, law school, and some of the cases were like, you know, I mean, I wasn't your average everyday lawyer. And what happened was, you know, when I was a rookie lawyer, prosecutor, this old school lawyer took me to school, and he just wore me out on a case I should have won. You know, and after I lost it, I'm sitting there, you know, and I'm thinking, man, you know, he beat me because he put on a better show.
Better show. Yeah, I remember that from the book.
You know, and from this point on, if somebody beats me in a courtroom, it's because they put on a better show than I did. You know,
Right.
And like so, a lot of lawyers will tell you if you try a case against Jason, they used to call it the what do you call it? Pony and cart show. You know, that's Jason's little
Horse and pony.
Horse and
Horse and
pony
pony.
show. That's what they used to call my arguments. But that's okay. You can call what you want to. Your man just walked out here and he's doing life and you know, he's going to do a life sentence. So like, you can call it what you want to call it. You know, but then sometimes and you know, I didn't win every case I tried. You know, I'm not going to sit there and say, you know, like, it's one old judge told me, he said, son, as long as you're in this courtroom, you're going to win some cases you should have lost, and you're going to lose some cases you should have won. You know, and that's exactly right. And sometimes I think I'm trying to slam dunk, and I go quiet and say, well, in fact, one case I lost, and somebody was giving me a hard time, but I said, well, look, man, they let OJ off. You know? Okay, so there.
Anything could happen. I will say that two of the things that kind of came to mind as I'm reading this, there was one case where you created a David Letterman-like top 10 reasons why. And I'm reading, and I'm dying laughing about that one. And again, you'll have to buy the book because there's just too much to mention, and it is very worthwhile. Again, it's Prosecutor Boy by Jason Parker, RedhawkPublications.com. But the other one that was really funny was about, and I remember asking you, did you really bring a bale of marijuana into a courtroom?
I didn't bring it in. They brought it in and put it down in the
They
floor.
brought the okay.
Well, and the state did. And I'm in it, you know, like, kicking it, you know, and the dust flew up. I kicked it, and the dust flew up, and the jury, I almost got sick behind it, you know what I mean? But yeah, as far as that top 10 list thing, I contacted the DA who helped me try that case. He let me know I had written a book, you know what I'm saying? And the first thing he asked me, did you put that top 10 list in there?
Oh, yeah.
It's there.
Oh, it's in there.
He wanted to know if I put it in the book. Yeah, top 10 things a black man in Alexander County is not going to do.
Well, I was thinking as I was reading it, besides the whole thing is how revealing it was, it's a great book for anybody to get, but if you lived in this area, I mean, like Tom was talking about the things you went through that you know, some other of us didn't. It is particularly revealing about growing up in a small county like that.
Yeah.
right.
And for someone like myself from the Northeast, living down here, it was educational. It was revealing, and it was helpful. So in terms of who your audience is for this book, it could be a little bit of anybody, you know?
Well, I'll tell you an interesting aspect of that, and Jason and I have discussed this before. And I said to him one day over the phone, I said, you know what I think? I think that you and I have more in common than as a white guy, a black guy, who grew up in the South in small towns. We have more in common than you had in common with the individuals with whom you interacted up north.
For sure.
And that was exemplified when you had that great scene where you go into the bar.
Oh my gosh.
And that, which is one of the funnious stories.
Is that the pimp story?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's yeah.
Again, you got to buy this book.
Yeah, the Superfly outfits and all that, and you were suddenly realized that, hey, this is it's kind of a Dorothy moment. I'm not in Kansas anymore.
Amen.
I mean, you didn't have a great time up north, did you?
No, he didn't take the midnight train to Georgia, but he rode the
Akron-
midnight train back to North Carolina.
Akron and Detroit.
Yeah, Akron and Detroit.
Talk about Akron and Detroit.
All right. I was working for Kmart. I was assistant manager there. I'd been trained in Durham, and I really liked Kmart at that point. But I came to work one day in Durham, and the boss says to me, like, what do you want to be transferred to? And I said, Atlanta, Georgia, as fast as I can get there. The man said, well, at least you got the A right. What do you mean? He said, well, you're going to Akron, Ohio. And the only thing I could think of was soapbox derby. What am I going to do in Akron, Ohio? So I get up there, and the first thing I see is, as I'm pulling into town, like 3 o'clock in the morning, is all these beautiful women walking around with these high-heel shoes, and I'm stupid because I didn't know they were hookers, So, and then,
Kid from Taylorsville don't see that very often.
yeah, I had never seen a hooker before in my life. You know what I mean? Like that. And they were beautiful, man. And but see, that was the whole thing. There was a pimp mentality in Akron, and so after I'd been, and I didn't like my new boss. He was a jerk, and he had these crazy ideas about people. He was paranoid, and he wanted us to do stuff like make deposits at night. And we get in a car with a cop who only has like a 1967 Chevrolet and no radio and his gun. And that's all we got. Hey, man, I did it one time. Some people followed us with the headlights off. I went the next day, I'm not doing this anymore, okay? Because I was, well, I found out later on, he had specifically requested a black assistant because of white flight, Everybody, that particular neighborhood where that Kmart was located, the white people were moving out, black people were moving in, and the pimps were coming with them. And like he gave me a description one time about this pimp that walked in there. He was driving a Rolls Royce, and he had all these girls walking behind him. He had a big hat, star in his hat. That was before I got there. But anyway, what happened was I went to the club one night. Me and my buddies. I hit one guy was from Alabama, the other guy was from Kentucky. We were Southern boys. And we didn't, have that mentality. So we go into this club one night. We were going to check out this night scene, and as soon as we walk in the door, I realized, hey man, this is a mistake. I do not like what I'm seeing. Everybody in there was dressed in these bright blue, green suits with a matching hat and a big feather stuck outside of it.
Players Club.
Superfly.
Right. And we got on blue jeans and and sweatshirts and t-shirts, And so we're standing at the bar, about to drink all this beer, and everybody's staring at it, looking a little funny. And one little guy walked up to us. I called him, and he said, like, he looks like the Fruit Loops, or what do you call it? A leprechaun from
Lucky Charms.
Lucky Charms.
Yeah, the Lucky Charms leprechaun. And he goes up and says,
Yeah, it's a good
I know
description.
who you guys are. Not the word he used, but then he goes, who you N-words are. And we said, who are we? And one of the guys said, who are we? He said, you guys are the FBI. And everybody in the club turned and looked at us. And I said to my man, we got to get out of here. We do not belong. And I was staying in a senior citizen apartment. There's only 3 black guys in there, and the rest of the people are old white people. And we hurried back to the old folks' home.
Oh my gosh.
Now, what first opened your mind to the idea of getting involved with the law as a lawyer?
I used to watch a lot of Perry Mason television shows when I was a
Really?
kid. Yeah, my dad loved Perry Mason, so I used to watch Perry Mason. I said, well, I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a lawyer. Sort of thing. And that's another thing about, that kind of caught me wrong when I was, after I graduated from college and came back, and I spent those 2 years goofing off, I dated this girl, and the whole thing was, baby, I'm going to become a lawyer, And she said, yeah, sure you are.
It sounds nice.
But anyway, so when she dumps me for this other guy, I decided, okay, I'm gonna go back to law school. I'm gonna become a lawyer and show her, for the mistakes she made. But as soon as people got intel, got rumors that I was planning on going to law school, they sent some old deacons and around to try to talk me out of it. They didn't want a black lawyer in the area, so they sent these three guys, four of them. There's three guys from my church and another guy who was a black community leader. Said, "Son, you need to go back and become a school teacher." I don't want to become a school teacher. I want to be a lawyer. Okay, so then they sent my infamous uncle, Rayford Mays, a.k.a. Dog Man, and that's a different story. And everybody in Telson, if there's anybody in Telson listen, everybody knows who Dog Man was, because Dog Man is a legend in this area, back in the day when he was alive. And so Dog Man comes up and tells Uncle Rayford, says, "Son, you're not mean enough to be a lawyer." And I said, "Okay, what do you say, Unc? I'm nice to him too, but I'm going to go to law school." And I said, "Man, I wish Unc would have lived long enough to see me put some of those guys in jail. I bet you they could kill him." You sure got that one wrong, because he is mean enough to be a lawyer, Yeah. But,
No, Uncle Rayford is a character,
yeah.
to say the least. One of the most interesting characters in the book, for sure, among many interesting characters.
But he was for real.
Yeah.
And I'm named after him, oddly enough. Uncle Rayford. My middle name is Ray. Okay. And me and my two other cousins used to argue about which one of us was his favorite nephew. And I said, "Look, I got his name. So I win.
Can you tell us what your family, friends, community, what has been the response to your book? And I know a lot of folks are still getting it, but have you had other people who have had a chance to read it, and what kind of feedback are you getting?
Nobody's read it.
Nobody's read it.
No, they want to read it. It's like, my wife refuses to read it. Everybody's waiting for it to come out.
Wait. Your wife has not read it yet.
She got to page 31 and quit.
Okay.
I was sort of planning to do that, read first couple chapters, and I thought, well, and I'd see the title for the next one. Well, what's this about? And and once you got to the case law, it just you think.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you did the part about the show, it made me realize that is a stage for you.
Right.
And when at the end you're talking about doing community theater and those roles that you did there, I thought, well, he's just kind of traded one stage for another. Do you see it like that?
Yeah, like I said, nobody's going to put on a better show in a courtroom than I do. And after I tried one case, matter of fact, the one with the top 10, the guy says to me, no, actually it wasn't that. There's another case that's not in the book, and about this dog guy that, he was a dog fighter, and he made a mistake of fighting a bunch of brothers over there, and, he ends up dead, and the brothers. But anyway, after I tried that case, this old guy standing in the audience, and he was kind of funny. He dressed like an old cowboy, had a big old cowboy hat, and he walked to me and said, "Son, you need to be an actor." And he missed your profession. I said, "Okay, well, maybe so," but that's the whole thing. When you're arguing the case in front of the jury, by the way I saw it, this is my chance to be Perry Mason or Matlock or anybody else that I want, any other lawyer out there that wants to be enslaved. But I wasn't those guys. I was Jason. I used to have a little old lady who was a courtroom watcher, and she would come to watch my trials, and her name was Sue Morgan, sweet old lady, but she would, after listening to the evidence, she would want to predict what the verdict was going to be. And most of the time, she was right on the money. And when she comes to me, well, Mr. Parker's like, "That was a good case, but you're going to lose this one."
I was going to ask how you felt when she bet against you.
Oh, man. I didn't want to hear that. You know what I mean? But
Wow.
yeah, she was right most of the time, man.
Wow.
And she but what happened there was OJ happened, and she quit watching me come to court. She stayed home and watched court TV. And so I kind of lost her after that time. And then when I moved down to Statesville, she wasn't there anymore.
And it is interesting, and it's been briefly mentioned, and it's in the book. You did make a successful transition from the courtroom to the theater. You performed in some community theater here in Catawba County, Hickory Community Theater, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
And was it the role? Was it just the idea of testing your boundaries? What was it that possessed you to become a local thespian?
Well, the Crowns was the first play I was in, and I had never thought about being in community theater, but Vanessa Harris, who was the Adams Harris, was the director. She's from Oklahoma. So she came to the church I was attending at the time and stood up and said, "Listen, we need some actors to audition for this play," you know. So I go bouncing over that Monday night just as a lark, you know, to audition for it, and she called me a couple of days later and said, "Okay, well, you're going to be the man." Now, I don't know if you're familiar with the play with Crowns, but it's like 8 women, 1 guy. And I was that 1 guy. Well, that was wide opening experience, you know, like 8 women.
Wow.
You know,
Every night?
Yeah, man, I'm telling you, Jack. It was, I'm sitting there thinking, Solomon wasn't as wise as he thought he was if he had 1,000 wives, because this ain't working.
And it was only 8.
Yeah, but it was fun. I enjoyed it, man. Like, it turned out that, I won, they have this thing called the K Awards. And my very first time out, I win the K Award for Best Supporting Actor.
That's awesome.
Congratulations.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's
And,
that's amazing.
And the group and 2 other people awarded, K Awards, out of that play. And we played to a sold-out house the whole time. And then the group, we all got Best Ensemble. So I got 2. And I was bit by that time. So then next year they decided they're going to do this thing called Ain't Misbehaving, And I looked at what I did there instead of, so I had no idea what Crowns was about when I first signed up for that. I just did it. And I didn't realize I was going to have to do a whole lot of singing and that kind of thing. But, I sing in the male choir at church, and so I'm okay with that. But when we did Ain't Misbehaving, I actually went out and looked at videos of that particular play on YouTube and said, okay, I think I can handle that, And then, we did that also. It was a pretty good play. And as soon as we finished doing Ain't Misbehaving, I got a call. They said, "Look, we need an actor down at the green room to play Reverend Sykes from To Kill a Mockingbird," right? Okay, I go down there bouncing in and thinking, okay, and I figured I didn't have much of a role, but when I get there and they're using the N-word so much, I went home to a wife. I don't know if I can do this or not, because these people are getting on my nerves, And but it's okay. I mean, they were actors and that kind of stuff. But I told them, here's the deal, y'all. When this play is over with, I'm washing all y'all's mouth out with soap.
Quick question for you, Tom. In terms of working with authors, and I know you've worked with many, including your brother Ron, what was your journey with Jason like? I know he's your friend, and I know everything worked out, but did you sense that he was compliant? I know you had to kill a lot of his babies, his words. What was your journey like as an editor working with Jason as an author?
Well, it was very smooth. I think we're exaggerating the killing the babies because I think he was aware that we needed to work on the beginning and that it was too long and we were going to have to cut something and we had to decide, and we didn't really disagree about that. I think that it was, and that made it very smooth. Plus, he's a good writer, so I was not having to do a lot of line editing. I did some. But I did not have to spend an inordinate amount of time on line editing, which was a big advantage. And plus, the stories were just so engaging. My challenge, and what I tried to do I didn't make a big point of this, but I wanted each of those chapters to be its own story.
They are standalones.
Yeah, they're
They are.
standalone, so they have an arc. And that's the way you want to set up something like that. You want it to have an arc. So the one that I think of right off the top of my head is about the hanging tree. And because that's a combination of both, you have humor, but you also have some very serious issues. And I wanted that to be structured in a certain way. And Jason had almost pretty much done that, but I tweaked it a little bit. And that is, the result of that is that you start out and you go out and you learn about this tree and its history. And I'm not going to go into detail about that because people need to read about it. But it's fascinating. It's called the hanging tree, and I think you can probably figure out why. But there's also a moment of just straight humor in it. And so you have to balance these things. And that's what I was talking about earlier, about it's got humor, it's poignant, it's touching, it's also candid in a number of spots. And I don't think Jason spares himself. I think he's honest about himself and the challenges he faced and when he did get help from other people. But so it was fun to work with. It really was, because I really felt like what we were doing was trying to structure the stories, and they were inherently interesting. So all it was just a matter of structure, and that's what we worked on.
You know, again, as we try to help aspiring writers and for those that are already in the writing process, in addition to hiring an editor, Jason, you also are working with Rebecca Caldwell.
Yes.
And if you wouldn't mind, share with our audience what that's for. And I'll give you a heads up. Writing a book is one thing. Selling a book is something else. Now, saying that, tell us about what you're doing with Rebecca.
Well, Tom here gave me her name and told me you need to get a hold of her, man, because the whole thing is, you know, like you said, it's not a matter of just writing a book, but you also got to, publish it and get it out there among different folks in different bookstores and stuff like that. And Rebecca, she's lining up, me to go to different bookstores in different parts of the country. I mean, we're talking about the whole Western. She's familiar with Western North Carolina and Northern South Carolina, and so she's trying to line up
Readings and events.
Readings and events and things like that, and joint events with John Ray and some other guys who that she's working with, and she helped me prepare those. I got some big posters for my book launch.
And let's talk about your book launch, because I'm hoping this will be out in time. So I know that sometimes people will listen to this afterwards, but you do have a book event coming up soon, right?
Yes, October 3rd between 5 and 7 p.m. at the NoCo.
NoCo Arts,
Yeah.
and that's in Newton, North Carolina.
On North College, yeah. Right across the street from the State Theater.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. So if you're listening to this and we get this up in time, and I hope we will, please join us at NoCo Arts on Friday, October 3rd from 5 to 7:30. And you'll get an opportunity not only to hear Jason, but buy a book and get it signed.
But if you miss that, she's lining up a whole lot of other events
right.
too, right?
Yeah.
It's a whole book tour.
Yeah, that's what she's doing. She's trying to line up a whole book tour. I'm just got some health issues I got to work out first, but once we get that out of the way, we'll be fine.
Okay. And also, you mentioned John Ray. We had an opportunity to speak with him a little earlier, because we published a novel by John Ray, and if you go back a few pods, you'll find our interview with John. His novel is called Lifer, and Tom, I believe you worked on that one also. Yeah.
Yes, I did.
So between John Ray and Jason Parker, these are two literary lawyers, as I like to call them, and our first actually was Austin Allran. Mm-hmm. So we've actually had 3 published attorneys with Redhawk Publications, and all really solid books. Something about lawyering and literature.
Well, I was going to ask Tom if, because you could generally classify a lawyer as a performer because they're performing, trying to get a jury to agree with them. Are performers different writers than what we generally think of as a writer, like a person in solitude, by themselves doing that sort of thing? Is that different writing, or is writing writing?
No, I don't think writing is writing.
Okay.
Now, Jason, I would say Jason is atypical in a lot of ways, because a lot of the writers I know tend to be more introverts and tend to be introverted. But the advantage that attorneys have, and this is something I've noticed over the years, is that they tend to major in college in something, subjects such as English, history. And when I've attended functions where there were attorneys, often you can talk with them about a lot of different things. And so they tend to be able to write fairly well to begin with. So I think they have built-in advantages when it comes to writing and also having some background as far as history, literature, et cetera. And then it's just a matter of, as in Jason's case, he just has all these interesting stories. Now, I know not all law is like that. You know, you've got other types of law, but the type of law that he practiced, you're going to have stories. And he has more stories to tell, and I think we're going to work real hard to get those out. But it's just an inherent advantage to be an attorney, I think. I think it lends itself to, and they do have to be outgoing. If someone...
The trial lawyers.
Yeah, the trial lawyers have to be performers. You just cannot... If you look at the history of the really great lawyers like Clarence Darrow and people like that, they were performers. F. Lee Bailey, Johnny Cochran, they were performers. You know, they realized that they had to sell this to 12 people. And so there is a real advantage there, but they are not your typical authors, you know.
How's
for the most
this?
part.
If the glove doesn't fit, you have to buy Prosecutor Boy by
Yes.
at RedHawk.publications.com.
That's a little rough seg, but that worked.
Yes.
I do want to say this about the writing aspect of it. Before I went to law school, somebody told me I needed to read a book on creative writing, you know, because I was going to be doing a lot of writing, you know, when it came time to, like, doing briefs and things like that in law school. And that helped a lot. It did. I mean, like, so if you are going to try to be a writer, I suggest you either read or look at a YouTube video to, you know, improve your writing skills before you even get started. Now, as far as the stories that's in this book, you know, I did. I wasn't your typical prosecutor or anything like that. Because, like, I remember this guy telling me one time, I said, like, this lawyer was arguing a case, and he said, Your Honor, that judge is put that juror back there is asleep. And the judge said, that's your problem because you put him there, you know.
I can't believe that you put anybody to sleep.
I didn't. I'm just saying, I didn't do it. I'm just saying another lawyer did that.
Yeah, another lawyer.
Oh, no,
okay.
Nobody ever went to sleep on, you know, if he did, I did.
Yeah.
It's your job to wake him up.
Oh, I'd have woke him up.
Yeah.
You know, they don't go to sleep on me. Nobody goes to sleep on me.
Well, that brings up a great point. And Patty, I would emphasize, if I can give, this is the advice my brother gives everyone. And you just have to be a reader. You just have to be a reader to be a writer. And you have to read widely, and you have to read a lot. There's certain characteristics of the good writers, and that's one. And you have to be willing to draft. And I think that's the mistake that a lot of people think. I think there are a couple of mistakes that aspiring writers make. One is they think that you write a book and you send it up to New York, and there are a bunch of agents waiting there to pick it up, or publishers, and that's just not the case. And God bless Redhawk for being a regional press that will, you know, that gives an outlet for regional writers who are excellent writers. But it's a tough market right now for someone. But what I would say is that just you have to be a reader. You have to read. You have to read widely. You have to write. You have to write every day. And you have to sit down, even if you don't feel like writing, and write. And then when you start working with your editor, you have to be willing to do multiple drafts. And there are certain things that you just have to do. And I don't think people realize how hard the job is. And because the drafting is where you really do the hard work. And it takes multiple drafts, and some people get frustrated with that, but you want the best possible book you can produce, and the only way you can do that is by writing multiple drafts. So if I can give any advice, it would be those things.
And I will share between Jason's book and John's, I have notes from Jason, because Jason was really good about giving us notes for us to update for subsequent drafts. John Ray was really good about using Post-its. And on my desk right now, it's my prototype. It's what I show everybody. This is what you're going to go through. There's probably about 45 yellow Post-its in one of the drafts of John's. And of course, Jason, you were really good about giving us like word, and it was so simple for us to update. So I want to thank you guys for that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, if you think you're going to come in with a book and we're going to just put in a comma and publish it, that's not the way it works. 18 months to 2 years, 3 years in New York. We struggle, man. A book is a novel, a memoir of this size is going to take at least 12 to 18 months, and that's fast. You know what I mean?
And people are going to get so sick of reading their own words. I mean, how many times you go over a chapter and go over it and go over it and go over it and that sort of thing?
Right, and that's why I would add that you do need an editor.
Yes.
You do. I mean, that's not self-promotion. It's just that it doesn't have to be, you're not talking about me. You have to have someone who's a good editor and someone who will work with you. And what I always say to the writers with whom I work, it's a conversation. We're having a conversation. Yeah. We're just talking about your book, and then we're both working towards the same goal. So don't be sensitive about your language. You can't really be sensitive, and there's some things that someone may suggest that, well, we need to cut that, and it may very well need to be cut. But I also tell writers, ultimately, it's your book.
Right.
And if you really want something, fine, keep it. And then the other advice I would give is what we talk about here. I know the folks at Redhawk talk about towards the end, you need to have someone read it who has not read it, not seen it. Because no matter how many times Jason and I went over it, or John Ray and I went over it, or any of my other authors went over it, there's still going to be something. I mean, Cormac McCarthy's last book, I'm reading it, I see a couple of things, I say, that's by the New York editors. And, they have the best. So it's human. I mean, it's going to happen. You're going to have things in books. So that's not the big, but you do want to have the final stage, have a really good reader who's just proofing, not editing, proofing.
And I will say, the funny thing is the beta readers, both Leslie and Arnita, for your book, when we came out with near final, I had them read it again. Mm-hmm. And I can't tell you how much they really enjoyed it. So they got to see the full process from the beginning to the actual end. So, and
I want to say this, I really thank this guy, Tom, for being what he was. Because, I had no idea what editing was about. Now, my kid brother and his wife, they owned a little newspaper down in Atlanta. And she was the editor for it. And we went to a friend of theirs' house. He was one of the chief editors for the Atlanta Constitution. And he said, well, if you write a book, I was telling him about it, I was giving him more stories. Well, you need to write a book. And I said, well, okay, I need a book. Whatever you do, get you a good editor. And I said, well, okay. And he said, and he pointed to my sister-in-law, and she's one of the best. And she looked at me and she said, nope. So at that point, because she's retired now. She said, I'm not doing this anymore. I was just like somebody tried to hire me to handle a trial right now. No, sir, buddy. I'm done. I'm tired. I'm retired. I'm gone. I'm good. So, but anyway, but when you said I should get an editor, I had no problem with that because, I've been told before, you need to get a good editor. And apparently I got one of the best.
You did. You absolutely did, yeah. Now, both of you are hinting over the fact that there's maybe a Prosecutor Boy 2.
I'm advocating for it. And I know that he'll say something to me about a story or something. I said, Jason, write it down. And because I know he has probably 5 books worth of stories.
Whoa! Come on, man. This is a series.
And I'm a believer in this book as far as personally feel like this should be a nationally read book. And I hope it will be. I really do. But yes, I certainly hope that he has it's up to him. But I've been encouraging him to go ahead and start on number 2.
Well, see, here's the thing, the stuff he kicked out, I've got about maybe 9 or 10 stories, war stories already written.
Still, yeah.
That
are ready to go.
Ready to go. And I got a lot more in my head that I haven't reduced to writing. But, this is it's a tedious thing, I mean, to do it, and I keep trying to figure out, well, where would I start, man? Because I've already told my, most of the first half of the book, is telling my background. I keep telling, well, I could, he said, well, you need to go back to your background every now and then. And basically, what I'd be doing is, well, you need to read the first book so I can so you can understand what I'm talking about in the second one.
I don't think that's necessary. I think you'll get. I think the advantage you have is that we know your story now, and I do think it would be people who would want to read the first book anyway. Mm-hmm. But even if they do start with the second book, the stories are so great, they're going to be caught. They're going to read it and they're going to say, oh, and then they're going to go back and read the first one. Mm-hmm. It's just an inherently interesting book. It just really is. The stories are fascinating, telling, and it's just it talks about you're very aware of the time period. So there's a sense of that. It's an interesting look at racial relationships. Something I learned. I went to Chapel Hill in 1975. Jason went to State. You started at State in 70
and finished in
70. And I never really thought about the fact that there were very few black students on the State campus. I knew that there wouldn't be a large number, but that was something I learned. There were very few black students on that campus. And his experience going off to college, which is scary anyway, and then looking around and realizing, oh, well, I'm one of the few black students, in this huge school. And that really struck me. That was one of the moments, that was an aha moment for me. I had not thought about how that would feel.
Well, you could walk across campus and not see another black face all day long. There were like 13,000 students, maybe 350 black students in total. But things got better when his hero came along. He knows David Thompson. He used to play. I played with him. So I
grew up playing ball with David Thompson.
See, and that shocked me because when you sat there and tell me that, I said, "Dang!" But then we've had discussions about David Thompson and that era and him playing with him and that kind of stuff. And we also had a discussion in that one case where I was talking about this. Woman was talking about the size of her husband's, junk. And he calls me and said, "Hey, man, that ain't funny."
We've had exchanges like that. What's interesting about David Thompson, and I realize some people are going to immediately know who we're talking about. The somewhat sad thing about David is that he had some drug problems later in his career. But there was a time when you said David Thompson's name in the state of North Carolina.
Everybody knew.
Everybody. And they won the national championship. He was nationally known, National Player of the Year. Great player, had a great start to his pro career and then ran into some problems. And I've seen David since then, and he's doing a lot better, obviously, in his life. I ended up playing with his nephew and his cousins, because David was a little older, but in pickup games I played with David. But David was there when my brother was there. They were in the same class. And a lot of people, and I'm one, and my brother would agree, attribute our relatively smooth integration at Crest High School to the fact that we had to rally around, that David was this great player. And the funny thing is that they did not win the championship when they lost one game. That was the final game with David. But I think the same thing happened at State. It gave the white students a different perspective. Yes, in some cases it may have been shallow, but not necessarily. I think that it made them realize that these guys, these are individuals. Yeah. They're human beings. This guy, and David was a nice guy. He was just a nice guy. Yeah. And I think it helped Crest integrate. I think it helped State integrate. Because Jason said the climate changed at State, and State's a big school.
You know, those first 2 years are terrible, man. But,
Yeah.
but after Thompson got there, man, like, you know, I can actually tolerate this place now. You know what I mean? Like, this is a whole lot better. you know?
That was a fascinating coincidence
Yeah.
that I happen to know David and Jason was there when he was winning national championships.
Well, one thing, we have to start to wrap this up, but I do want to say you will not fall asleep while reading Prosecutor Boy. And do you want to know why? Because of our sponsor, Tasteful Beans. That's a good segue.
Now, how does that work?
You go to Tasteful Beans, you get your coffee, you get your muffin, you get your quiche, which is excellent, by the way. And there are sponsors. RedPubPod is sponsored by Tasteful Beans. So we encourage you to visit our sponsor. Let them know that you're there. All things literary. We sell our books there. We'll probably have Prosecutor Boy there soon. And you know what? More than anything, I want to thank today's guest. I know I started off a little tongue-tied, but I have to tell you, you now know why. I've got the best guests ever. Tom, thank you once again for coming down.
If
from
I can
Nashville.
chime in and say to your sponsor, thank you. These days, anyone who shows interest in supporting the arts, I am all for. So thank you.
Yeah, well, Scott Owens is a poet,
Yeah,
and he owns Tasteful Beans. So
I know,
We're
and
blessed. We are very, very blessed.
These people that support, I think about Malaprops in Asheville, and then you guys deserve a lot of credit. Redhawk is, you have published books that deserve to be published, and you're giving an outlet to regional writers, and I'm a big fan.
Let me say this about this book. This fulfills perfectly the mission that we're on.
Yes.
And the mission that the college is on is to not only teach, but show this area for the great place that it is. And, when we first started this, one of the things was, we have a very vibrant community. We just don't talk about it too much.
Right.
And when you publish, and especially a story like this that is multifaceted, it fulfills that perfectly.
Well, I want to thank Redhawk for giving me this opportunity because I guarantee you I would have never got this book published had it not been for that chance meeting with Patty.
Well, it's a blessing. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I feel fortunate that it happened and the way it happened because it ended up being the phenomenal book that it is. So again, thank you to our guest. Richard, thank you so much for being our engineer today.
My pleasure.
And also final reader, because he also did a final read.
Couldn't put it down.
If you get a chance.
97's just a start.
I know. I ordered more books, by the way, because we have them. We have to. Please be sure to share, like, and subscribe if you're enjoying this pod. And also, check out our website, as we've mentioned, RedPubPublications.com. And I guess there's only one final thing to ask him to do.
There
Richard?
is. Would you please say the name of our podcast, RedPubPod?
RedPubPod.com.
RedPubPod.
There you go.
Slow but steady.
Yeah.
RedPubPod.
That's the way we do it. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. It's been an exceptional podcast, and I'm looking forward to Prosecutor Boy too. So
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Once the marketing from Prosecutor Boy 1 runs its course.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good
Yes.
listening.
Read.
This is
RedPubPod.
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 That's the way we do it.
RedPubPod.
A podcast from Redhawk Publications.